Happy Saturday to everybody watching. My name is 12 Gauge and welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. If you haven't been here before, thank you so much for joining the channel and giving the channel a try. I decided to talk a little bit about this situation because Jeff and I were talking about this last night. And it's interesting that Plunder had a video interview about it, and I'm gonna use her video with her permission, of course, and to discuss some of it based on fair use. Thank you so much, Plunder, for having this video available for me, and everybody else in the YouTube arena. It has to do with the Eric Gower interview, and as you know, there's been a lot of interesting discussion pertaining to Eric Gower. Who was this guy? Did he really pick up the girls that night? Was he the one that gave them a ride home, or could it possibly been somebody else? Well, all that is interesting question because we really don't know exactly the skinny of it. You know what I mean? So let me get this started, and we'll hear what Mr. Gower has to say. Once again, thank you, Plunder, for this. And here we go.
You want me to see right there for him? Yeah, for sure. All right. So, obviously, you know why we're here. Like, we just need to try and figure out what you can tell us and any information that you have. Okay. So, do you know a Maddie or Kaylee?
Yeah.
Okay, how do you know that?
So I drive for Uber and Lyft. I drive for Uber and Lyft, and so I met them through that, and they kind of became some of my regulars. So I drive them pretty frequently. They texted me last night at Saturday at 10:02 p.m. Kaylee texted me and asked if I could pick her and some friends up from their house at 11:22 and take them to the club.
Okay, so we start off right off the bat that he does know Maddie and he does know Kaylee, and they have his personal number, so they're able to text him directly. Unlike most of us who don't have that opportunity, most of us have to go through the app, the Uber app, and kind of chance exactly who we're getting. They had the luxury of knowing this individual, obviously, and he knew them, so he was able to pick them up. And the first time he picked them up, he said around 11:22, and take them to the corner club, which we know that.
I got there at 10:15, picked them up, took them to the club. I think there was 3 of them. Can't remember that for sure, but there was at least a couple in the back, I think, and Kaylee was up front.
Okay.
And then at 1:45 a.m., Kaylee texted me, said, "Hey, can you come pick me up and some friends from the grub truck?" I got there at 1:49, and then they got in the car shortly thereafter, and I took them home.
Okay, so there is his own words saying that he got there at 1:49 and took them home. As we know, based on other people's recollections or their wording, they got home at 1:56. And this was the individual that dropped them off.
It was only a 3-4 minute drive, dropped them off, and then headed out to another ride.
Okay. And who did you pick up? What time did you pick them up at?
I got to the grub truck at 1:49 a.m. And then their sister, I think it was, texted me last night, and kind of talking with her, went and found because grub truck live streams their stuff, went and found them.
So even Olivia has his number. So this guy must have been easy to get a hold of because not only did Maddie and Kaylee have the number, I guess even Dylan put his number in her contacts, obviously, because we've heard that in some documentation that we've read. So it seemed that this individual was pretty well known in this little circle. So let's continue on and see what he has to say.
On that, because I couldn't remember for sure who the other person was. And so I found him on that, and then they got in the car, and then we drove straight to their house, so I dropped him off.
All right, so let's go back through here just a little bit. So you drive for Uber and Lyft.
Mhm.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that since 2019. October of 2019, I think.
How long has Kaylee been a regular for you?
I think they started last year. I think they lived there last year. There's a lot of people that come through that house, like friends of theirs and old alumni and stuff.
So for about the last year then?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were obviously working Saturday night, or were you just at home?
Yep, I was working.
Okay, so you're out. You have an app that they contact you through, or was she texting you directly?
She just texted me directly.
Okay, so like I just said, most of us have to go through the app. Most of us have to go through that Uber app. He drives for Lyft as well, so he said he was working that night. Kaylee texted him. So them being a regular, so to speak, anytime Kaylee or anybody that she knows in her immediate circle, they text him, and I guess he if he's not on a ride, then he goes and picks them up. So obviously, this night he was not scheduled to pick anybody up during that time, so he was able to pick them up, take them to the corner club, and then pick them up at the grub truck.
Okay. So Kaylee has your cell phone number?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so they contacted you directly.
Mm-hmm.
You picked them up at the house first?
Yep, picked them up at the house, 11:22 there at
Okay.
whatever time, 10:02 I think is when she first texted me. I think I got there at 10:15.
Okay. And you said you took Kaylee and 3 other girls?
I think there was 3 total. I think there was
3 total, so Kaylee and 2 others?
Yeah, I think. Like I said, there's quite a few that come through that house, so I hadn't gotten names and faces down entirely. But it's always dark when I'm driving people, so
that's fine.
I can't remember who all it was.
Then you got another text from her about 1:45.
Yep.
Asking to pick them up with a grub truck.
Yep.
You arrived there at 1:49.
Yep.
Okay. And when you
Excuse me. Hey, Cuff You. This is the interview with Eric Gower, which was, they call him the rideshare driver, they call him the Uber driver. They use a lot of different names for this individual. So he's being interviewed by the police, and he's telling the story of the night that he picked up the girls, took them to the corner club, picked them up at the grub truck.
picked them up, where did you park?
I parked in front of the grub truck, and so then they came
So-
from the back of the car.
Now, what do you mean by in front of the grub truck? In front of it.
So where it parks there outside the garden,
Okay.
it had a space in front of it, and there was a car already behind it.
Okay.
So when I pulled up, I just kind of pulled in between the front of the grub truck and that curb, and like where the Friendship Square like crosswalk is.
Okay, so you're facing.
I'm facing south.
Okay, so you're facing the south direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just pull up.
Mhm.
How long did it take them to get to you?
2-3 minutes maybe. I pulled up and I texted her that where I parked, and she said, "Perfect, be in a sec." They are at 75, and we were 78 order numbers. And
Okay, so that explains what Kaylee was doing when she was texting, that so many people don't have an understanding of who's Kaylee texting. What's Kaylee texting? Well, as we know, I'm not going to go back into the grub truck video because we've seen that video multitudes of times. But you understand, right before they got their order, Kaylee was texting. So now that he's stating She texted him, "We'll see you in a second. We're number 75 or 78, and or they're 75, and we're at 78 order numbers." So they were about to get their food. They were about to go around, get into the vehicle, and take off. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Um, that now we know when Kaylee was sitting there texting right before they left, obviously that's who she was texting. Video, verbal interaction of what actually he had on his end. So you can kind of correspond those two things happening.
And within a couple minutes, they got in. Kaylee sat up front, Maddie sat in the back.
Okay. Did they say anything to you when they got in the car?
We talked like usual. Maddie was in the back and was eating her grub truck with her hands, and Kaylee was up front and just kind of was like, "Hey, I hear you back there eating that with your dirty little hands. Like, don't eat all of that. We're gonna split it." She's like, "I'm not." Okay. And then, just kind of talked to us how the night went and everything. Everything seems fine.
What did they say about that?
I don't remember specifically. I was working since 10 a.m. I'd been out till 3 the night before, I think it was. So I had a bunch of people, but it was kind of usual. Like, I don't remember him saying anything like, "Oh, look, tonight sucked," or whatever. I had a lot of people that said, "Oh, tonight was like so," but nothing like that stood out as far as weird or awkward or anything like that. As far as I remember everything was fine.
They didn't talk about anybody else they had been talking to during the night. Didn't give you anything to make you feel that there was anything that had happened during the night.
So, like I've said countless times, when it comes to an interview, it is just casual rapport, asking these questions, kind to get an understanding of what he saw, what he heard. Was there anything strange? Was there anything suspicious being stated when they got in the vehicle? I mean, could he have heard something that could have led to something that could have led to something? And obviously, there was nothing that was being stated that he can recall that gave any kind of red flags about that evening. So he picked up Kaylee and Maddie. Maddie's eating the food in the back seat with her hands. Kaylee tells her not to eat it all because they're going to split it once they get home, which is, he said it was a 3.5 minute drive.
Okay. Do you still have all their texts?
Yeah.
Can you screenshot those and send those to me from the first text with her to the last one?
First ever? Or just
from Saturday. So starting on Saturday, when was your first text with her?
Let's see here. Saturday, 8:40, she asked if I was driving.
Okay, start with that one. Okay, so start there. And then to whenever your last text with her was.
Okay. Yeah, I texted her after I got the vandal alert asking if they were all okay.
Okay.
And then what's your phone number? Yep.
What's your middle initial?
So did you hear what he just said right there? I texted her right after I got the vandal alert asking if they were okay. So that other individual that had the interview with Anjanette and that other person, their stuff didn't add up. This guy texted her after the other person stated that they found out a couple days later. They went and got some Taco Bell. They continued about their business. So as you can see, there's two different stories, and this individual seems to be the one that's really legit. Who the hell knows who that other person was that they interviewed or where he got all his information from?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And your date of birth? And I'm just going to ask for what's your address? Okay. And your phone number again? Your license in Idaho?
Yeah. You have. Okay.
License out of Idaho or not?
Okay.
Okay. And you sent those to me?
Yep. It shows that they sent at least.
I have not gotten them
Oh, let's see here. Should probably try and screenshot the times too.
yet. And you sent
We'll try
them.
to
They may come through in a minute or two.
pull these over here so that we have all the times too.
Okay. And then just send those ones to that same number for me.
So they're able to get all the interaction with Kaylee, all the interaction with all the others via screenshots and being sent to the police officer that's interviewing him. So that's what's going on at this point, and then they continue on.
Just going back to my notes real fast.
Yeah,
But based off of your interactions with him, nothing, you didn't have any feeling of anything out of the ordinary?
No, Maddie seemed drunker than Kaylee. I mean, you could tell they've been out the bars, but everything seemed fine. Behavior seemed typical. Like, I kind of usually notice when someone gets in, I'm like, hey, how's the night been? Oh, shitty, or, whatever. That's an unusual response.
How intoxicated compared to normal interactions with them were they?
I'd say Kaylee was pretty normal. Maddie was definitely, she was a little tipsy, kind of struggling to stand and walk a little bit. And you can see.
Okay, so he has the ability to see these two as they're coming to the car. He obviously has history with them and picking them up, dropping them off. So if he dropped them off at the corner club, he had reference as to what they looked like when he picked them up at the house, how she was walking, how Kaylee was talking, dropped them off at the corner club, picked them up at the grub truck. From the time he dropped them off to the time he picked them up, he could tell that something was different. Obviously, because he wasn't drinking. So, he's able to tell, okay, well, Maddie's a lot more intoxicated than what I saw her hours ago. And Kaylee, she's pretty normal. She's pretty much the same as I always see her. So to say that they both were intoxicated beyond recognition is, according to his words, is not true. Maddie being intoxicated, now you have a first-hand account of that.
On the grub truck thing too.
Yeah.
And then as I was backing out of their driveway, because it's kind of tight there, but I typically kind of drag my feet a little bit as I'm backing out and make sure they make it up and everything okay. And yeah, they made it inside safe and sound and everything. Nothing.
Did you see anything weird in the area before you left?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was. I'm trying to remember if that was last night or not. There was right as you come up you're heading to the Queens and you go turn right into their driveway. There's a car parked there and there's kind of a pile of stuff on the road. And one thing was a shoe. And I didn't pull in. I think that might have been Friday night.
Okay.
And because I won't pull in. I don't want to run over whoever's shoe. And I think I was pulled in the driveway and backing out when they were walking up.
Okay.
So I don't think that was the same night.
Anything? So you picked them up on Friday too?
I think so. Go back through here.
So if you picked them up on Friday and Saturday night, I mean, that gives you a frame of reference of one of the individuals that's seen them at their last moments of life. So that's huge whenever you're trying to figure out an investigative process. Who saw them? What did they see? What were they aware of? What was being spoken on?
Saturday. So she did text me Friday at 8:15, just asking if I was driving. I said I was, but then I never heard from him. So maybe that's a different night or different roommates or something. I can't remember.
Do you regularly pick people up from the house?
Yeah, that house.
So before people start to accuse him of stuff, think about if you've ever been an Uber driver, you've ever been a Lyft driver, DoorDash or any type of individual that has to be responsible for anything that comes into your vehicle, it's easy to get dates, times confused. It's easy to get people confused. If you're always picking these people up, if they're texting you, he has his phone right there. He's able to tell the date, the time, and now he's saying, well, it could have been a different night. Well, of course it could have. Does that mean that he was lying before? No. I mean, if you look at situations like that, of course it might mean that to you. But if somebody is just recalling information, how many times do you get days mixed up after you're not really thinking about the situation until somebody's asking you about it? Then you're like, oh, was that this night or was that night? So he's about to tell us that he picked up a lot of different people from this house.
House and like kind of the top of King Street there on the left. Those are like my two popular ones over there.
Who else have you driven from that house? Can you remember their names?
I was trying to remember when I was trying to text people, see if everyone was okay. I think there's another, like a that lives there maybe, or I've driven from there. I'm trying to remember where she goes. I only see her every once in a while. And but I think it might be one of those other houses that's just towards King Street, like one of those two that's kind of like the steep driveway.
Okay.
But they have quite a few alumni that come through that I've driven in the past. Like there's one, her name's as well. She lives down in Boise now, and like it's always kind of a hodgepodge of people from that house versus like it's always the same like 2 or 3 girls. So
okay. All right. Did you pick anyone else up that night and drop them off in that area after Kaylee and Maddie?
I don't think so. I had rides out of that area, and like I think I had some rides taking people back to there. I think that was before them, and there were girls. And then I picked up a couple from the house that's right there on the intersection of King Road, that kind of house there.
And so, you guys in chat, you do understand why he asked that question, right? Did you pick up anybody else after you took Maddie and Kaylee? You in the chat, is there any reason that you can understand why that question would have been asked? Go ahead and type that in the chat if you do have an understanding what made the officer ask that question. Because that is an interesting question to ask, because if you're investigating this, there's a reason he asked that. So go ahead and type that in the chat if you understand the reason for that question to be asked.
And I took some people from there to campus, like Greek Row, I think. And then I had a request from there for it. That was and everything. But then they canceled, and then Kaylee texted me from Grub Truck. So I don't know if it's for sure the same person.
What time do you think you dropped them off at their place?
Probably like 1. Oh, hang on. Let's see here.
Do you keep track of that?
Not really, but I had a ride right after. I was going to go pick up a guy at the alley, and I texted him that I was headed his way at 2:13. I had Maddie spilled some Grub Truck on the back seat, so when I pulled out of King Street, I just pulled right next to those apartments and cleaned off the seat real quick before I headed that way.
Okay.
I'm thinking I probably texted him about the time I was either pulling out or was on Taylor there.
So not right after you dropped
Not like
Kaylee and Maddie off.
Yeah, not like.
Well, they're trying to. The officer is asking these round of questions due to get with anybody else that might have been around to collaborate his story. Because if he said, yes, I picked up this person, I dropped this person off here, well, let me go and talk to them to collaborate your story, to collaborate that your timeline is indeed what you say It is. You know what I mean? Um, the timeline it goes like this. Kaylee texted him about 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Asked him if he was driving. He said yes. She never texted again. Okay, so Saturday, she texted him and asked him if he's driving. Um, he said yes. He picks her up and two other people at the King Road residence about 11 ish. He takes them to the corner club, which we've heard. It was Kaylee, Maddie, and another female, and they were drinking, I guess, if I remember correctly, kamikazes or limit drops or something like that. And they had like 6 or 9 in an hour, something like that. And then they walked to Grub Truck. Kaylee supposedly texted him at 12:45 or something, if he said correctly. He picks them up at 1:49. Text her he's out there. Kaylee said they're number 75 or 78. They'll be there in a second. They round the corner. There he is. Maddie's eating the food in the back seat. She's getting it everywhere. He dropped them off, has another pickup. At 2:15, he cleans off the seat where Maddie got the macaroni and cheese everywhere. And there we go. That's where we're at.
Immediate, but I probably dropped him off around 1:55, 2, somewhere in there.
You said 2:13 is when you texted the other one?
Yeah, I texted him at 2:13 that I was headed his way, be there in a minute. But I don't remember 100% where I was, but...
Okay. So you're guessing what time that you dropped him off?
2-ish.
Okay. All right.
Because, like I always tell you guys, instead of making a suspect, they want to eliminate these individuals from being a potential suspect. So when they're asking questions, they know that there's a reason they're asking that question. It's not just a generalized question that you ask. It's one of those questions to see if this person is going to tell you something that's going to contradict what they've been telling you all along.
Anything else that you think would be pertinent information that we need to know?
I don't think so. I've been trying to like think over things, and then the sister that texted me, like, she had kind of asked, like, hey, do you remember what time you dropped him off, and that sort of thing. I don't think so.
Okay. One last thing, and I've been asking everyone I talked to during this. Yeah. Can you flip them over for me? Pull your sleeves up for me. Over. Okay. All right. Like I said, we're just rolling everything out we can.
Feel free. I'm happy to do whatever.
Doesn't appear those have come through yet.
So those individuals that say that, they don't do a thorough check. Well, they're checking these mails for marks and any kind of cuts or any kind of abrasions they did with him, and he's obviously good.
What kind of signal strength do you have right now?
2 bars.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still not getting it through.
Okay.
I'll see if after you, it says it's sent.
Yeah, it usually has a bar across the top if it's still trying to send.
Okay. My phone just may not have picked it up yet, so I'll give it a few minutes. If I don't get it, I'll re-text it.
Okay.
I'll text you and then you can send it to me. Okay.
All right. Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, I think that's all I need from you then for now.
Right. So, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Let you go. I'm pretty excited. Thanks for coming in.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Everything like that.
Let me know if you need anything else.
Okay. Yep. I'm really out. Just push the bars like normal. I'll see you. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm close.
worked on the truck, and Derek and I have been the ones on grill and Mac, and we've had longer ticket times than that. Like, you're doing well.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there, and I'm going to put another video that I was talking about last night with Jeff, and it is For Fuck's Sake with Viviana. Let me see here. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. And I'm gonna restart this one. That way you guys understand what I'm talking about. Um, she is talking about Eric Gower versus the interview that was given to Anjanette Levy as well. Yeah, he seems to have had no real issues with the questions that were asked of him. He wasn't, stammering around all over the place, and he was clear with his answers. So I think he's pretty legit. But let's listen to the guy that does the interview with the individuals from, um, I think they're from Law and Crime. Here we go.
To Anjanette Levy and Alex Capriello to come forward and let the public know who they actually interviewed when they claim that they interviewed the private driver that took Kaylee and Maddie home the morning of November 13th, 2022. Because nothing in those interviews that you did matches with the real Eric Gower, who is listed in the legal documents as being the private driver. So if you could possibly let us know, did you check ID? Did you match up that it was actually this person talking to you? Was the interview done over the phone or was it done in person? Did you see his face? Because there's a lot of questions going around about this. Let's get started. So we'll start with this highlighted part here that I put. The man who did not want his name used read the affidavit charging Brian Koberger with felony burglary and 4 counts of first-degree murder, except his name was unredacted in the affidavit that was released on the Pennsylvania website. So his name was already out there. And I would assume he knew that, so that's interesting that he's saying he didn't want to be named. And then he said he was surprised but exceptionally glad that some form of resolution is forming. He said he was somewhat stunned to learn that Koberger, who maintains he did not commit the murders, lived near him in Pullman, Washington.
See the interview that we just heard. There was no mention of this. None whatsoever. Unless he was interviewed again after the fact. But there's no mention in any of the paperwork that we've received that states that I've seen. So let's continue to see what Viv has to say.
But that's interesting because Gower, the real Eric Gower, lives in Moscow, Idaho, and has lived in Moscow, Idaho. He's never lived in Pullman. So this doesn't match up at all. It says he lived 1,200 feet from my front door. I spent 6 weeks trying to convince my wife there was not a threat and that I was wrong. Except he didn't live 1,200 feet from Koberger. As I said, the real Eric Gower lives in Moscow. Also, his wife works for Moscow police. So it seems a little weird he would be spending 6 weeks trying to convince his wife there wasn't a threat. Then this next part says the driver spends much of his day shuttling people around town. Except that's not true either. That's not what he does for a job. The real Eric Gower works as a trio coordinator for University of Idaho, so the high school outreach program, and he was also getting his PhD during that.
So do you see the conflicting reports on the interview we just heard? That was the Eric Gower that was interviewed by the police. This individual was done. They did an interview with him with Anjanette Levy and another person, and he is telling them that actually his wife was having to be consoled for 6 weeks because she was scared because they lived so close to Koberger, 1,200 feet in Pullman. And this individual is supposedly the person that first bumped into the Hyundai Elantra.
That time as well. So his job was not driving around town. That was something he was doing in the evening as a University of Idaho employee, that they would help out. Another University of Idaho employee had explained it to me that they would rotate with different employees that volunteered to help drive students home at night after they've been drinking. So that wasn't his job. He didn't spend days shuttling people around town. So who is this person that you interviewed? And talking about how he was keeping an eye out for the car, and claims he spotted it at Koberger's apartment building. So what was he doing driving around in Pullman looking for the car? Did he really call the tip line? Did he really write down the license plate number, the real Eric Gower, or is it this person who turned it in that talked to you? Here's another thing that doesn't make sense to me. It says after learning the names of the student victims, he said he went to Moscow police and provided a receipt showing he'd purchased fast food after dropping them off. But the thing...
See, we never heard that in this interview. We heard that he found out about the situation when the the Vandal alert went out. So there is a inconsistency there as well.
Thing is, the murders didn't happen until after 4 a.m. So if he went and got fast food right after dropping them off, how would that be an alibi?
Right.
That's another sign to me that this is not the real Eric Gower that you interviewed. It sounds like this person was just using things that were in the news before the affidavit actually came out. And so it sounds like this person really believed the murders took place right after the girls got dropped off, and not what we learned when the affidavit came out, that it actually happened after 4 a.m. The next thing that's a red flag is he says for sometime afterward he felt guilt because he had driven Mogan and Gonsalves home that night, only to learn days later that they had been killed.
See, we just heard with his own mouth, he said that he heard about it to the Vandal alert. So this individual saying he heard about it days later. So this person that was interviewed was obviously not the real Eric Gower. The one that we just heard, that interview, was probably what was going to be presented at court, at trial.
How did he only learn that days later when his wife works for Moscow police? You would think that this is something he would have known about immediately. Also, he's an employee of University of Idaho, which means he also would have gotten the Vandal alert text message, because not just students get that, employees get that too. And all staff would have had messages going out to them.
And we did hear him say that. He said he learned about it through the Vandal alert. So Viv is right.
Them about how to handle classes and everything else for the upcoming week. So again, doesn't sound like this is the real Eric Gower you talk to. Now, this makes no sense either, because in the previous article, he says he didn't learn about it for days. But in this one, it says, when I saw the news on Monday, it occurred to me I was in the neighborhood, but that was before they'd released any names. Well, they released the names on Monday. So I'm not quite sure what he's talking about. They did an official news, or well, not the news conference yet, but the press release. They put out a press release on Monday with the names of the 4 victims. So then he goes, as soon as I knew for sure it was the girls, I went to police. But again, his wife works for Moscow police, so you'd think he would have known all of that. It's not adding up. It's not making sense. And here we go again. He said he swiftly was eliminated from inquiries, having provided officers with a wealth of data and a time receipt from the Taco Bell to where he went after dropping the girls back home. Except Taco Bell was not open at the time the murders took place. Jack in the Box is the only restaurant around Pullman, Moscow that was still open. So a receipt from Taco Bell wouldn't have been an alibi. Again, this sounds like somebody who was not the actual driver, who went to the media pretending to be him. And because they thought that the original news reports of the murders occurring around 3 a.m. was when it actually happened, he thought he could just lie his way through this interview. It's just really weird. And then he's like, I took about a week off of driving when I just stepped back from it all. Well, yeah, that week was kind of coming up into Thanksgiving break. So that could really be Gower there, but I doubt it. I just don't think somebody who doesn't even do that as full time would have been like, yeah, I took the week off. I mean, yeah, that's another red flag to me. And then he talks about how law enforcement is not communicating with the community, but yeah, his wife works for Moscow PD. Make it make sense. Like right here, do you think that somebody whose wife works for Moscow PD would make this comment? Most of us have very little faith in the MPD. We can't tell if we're watching qualified investigators who have a handle on the situation or if they are completely at a loss and grasping for straws.
Yeah, if your wife worked for Moscow Police Department, do you think she would be okay with you critiquing her place of employment? I don't believe she would.
I don't know. That just does not seem like the statement that the wife of an employee of the police department would make.
Right.
Now, here's something else. He's claiming he didn't know who they were right away, but yet we know Olivia Gonsalves, Kaylee's sister, reached out to him. And he's who told Olivia about the Grub Truck Twitch stream. So obviously he knew that it was Kaylee and Maddie that had been murdered when he was talking to Olivia. So it makes no sense that he said he didn't know for a week who they are.
News Nation's Alex Cabriello spoke with the driver about any details he had to share about that night. Alex?
Natasha, good evening to you. For the very first time, we're hearing from this rideshare driver who picked up Kaylee and Maddie right there on the side of the road on the night of the murders. Now, his testimony is incredibly important because it helps build additional context about that ride, as well as establish credibility to the timeline that the police have established.
News Nation tracked down and spoke to the Uber driver who was likely one of the last people to see Idaho murder victims Kaylee Gonsalves and Maddie.
So tell me what you think, Chad. Do you believe that this individual who spoke with Anjanette Levy and that other reporter was the real Uber driver, or do you believe it was somebody that was impersonating that Uber driver?
Mogan alive. In an exclusive conversation with the driver, who asked to remain anonymous, he says he knows Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana and shared what he remembered about the ride, a drive he says he thinks about every single day. I have a very good memory, the driver tells News Nation. I wasn't followed. There was no one there. There was absolutely nothing strange about that street. It was just a normal night on Greek Row. He says Kaylee and Maddie were not nervous or apprehensive in any way. The driver turned himself into the police days later, sharing his...
See, those statements that that person made right there are not consistent with the statement that Eric Gower made to the police officer in that interview, because he was going into detail. Maddie was in the back seat eating the macaroni or mac and cheese, whatever, carbonara, and getting, eating with her fingers. He knew descriptive things. While this individual's talking so vaguely, like he doesn't know what's going on. Hey, Lenora, thank you for being here.
His GPS coordinates and alibi, critical evidence to prove his innocence.
So, Alex, who did you really talk to? Because you didn't post a face. You didn't even use an altered voice. Nothing. For all we know, you could have made that up. And no, I'm not accusing you of that. I believe you really did speak to someone, but I don't believe you spoke to the real Eric Gower. I think you and Anjanette Levy, who wrote the print articles, got duped by somebody. Because all that information that person stated in those interviews was things that were already publicly available. It was everything that had come out in press releases and in news articles. And then after the affidavit fact came out, then none of that really matched up with what the person was saying, like the Taco Bell receipt, that he went and got food right after dropping them off, et cetera. That doesn't match up with the timeline of when the murders were for that to be an alibi.
No,
and then that he spends his days driving people. That's not what he does. That's not his full-time job. He doesn't live in Pullman. as I said before, he lives in Moscow and always has. So that doesn't make sense. I think you guys got duped by somebody, and I would love to know what your vetting process was and who you actually talked to, because
Right.
maybe that person has a little more information that we should know, possibly. Just saying. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys got duped. But let me know.
Well, thanks, Viv. She did that video a while back, but I thought that it was quite interesting, especially with everything that's going around today about this driver, because this driver is very, the interview is reliable, I believe. You know what I mean? It's like he talked to the police, he was able to answer the police's questions. He, he was able um, to discuss what he saw and so forth and so forth. Let me see. I'm gonna play this and hope Gray doesn't strike me, because this is his video and he has a lot of still shots and things that I don't have. So I'm gonna use his video for educational purposes only. Gray, you do wonderful work, and I'm just using your video as nothing more than just examples to discuss what I'm talking about. And this is video footage, and as what we just heard, you can put your mindset into the exact timeline. So here we go with the visual stuff. Thank you once again, Gray Hughes, for this. I'm not gonna put your voice out there. I turned it off, so if you have any music or anything like that, won't be copyrighted on that aspect. But thank you so much for this video. Well, here we go with the Corner Club. We know that Kaylee texted the Uber driver about 11 o'clock. He picked them up with two other people, just like I said earlier. The Uber driver came and picked him up, dropped him off at the Corner Club. They stayed at the Corner Club. Kaylee texted him again at about 12:30, 12:35, somewhere around there, that they would need a ride once they left the grub truck. So he said he was out, doing his deal. And there's obviously Kaylee and Maddie in the Corner Club. And we've seen a still video of this where they were standing next to what looked like Jack DeCur. And there, Kaylee went and dragged Maddie out the door to come on. It looked like, because that looks like the exit door. As we just heard the Uber driver, or I'm going to call him Gower because that's his name. As we heard Gower say, Maddie was more intoxicated than Kaylee was. So all those reports that Kaylee was as intoxicated also as Maddie, obviously by firsthand account of this individual, it wasn't true. Maddie was the most intoxicated person. And obviously this is the Corner Club, so anybody there that night would have been able to collaborate whether they saw these two and who they were talking to, who they were interacting with. And here is them walking from the Corner Club. We've seen this video as well. This is the Maddie, what did you tell Adam? Like, I told Adam everything. And then Showalter supposedly says something. And then they continue walking, which I've never seen this video, but this is awesome. As you can see, Maddie's walking, and Let me rewind that a minute because there's been a lot of people with the mindset that there was a third or second female walking with them, and that video had been edited that another female was walking because of the way that it looked like the legs of these individuals was going. So here we go. Watch this again. As you can see, that's Jack, Kaylee, and Maddie. And look how she's walking. Obviously, she's intoxicated. If you've ever been that intoxicated, you know how hard it is to keep your balance. And she looks like she's struggling pretty hardcore. You don't see another person in that video. There's a clear shot. There's obviously three people. Let me back that up a minute. 1, 2, 3. That's Maddie with the big ass coat on, Jack, Kaylee, and Madison. She had the big coat on. Kaylee obviously is wearing the sweatshirt with the blue jeans with the holes in them, the white shoes, and there's not a third person. There's a lot of channels that want to say that there's more than one other female was with this, with these individuals. And right here we have 11/13/2022 at 1:40 and 50 seconds. So they're on their way to the grub truck. He pulled up at 1:49, he says. So in 9 minutes, from the moment they get to the grub truck, it takes no time for them to get their food because he pulled up at 1:49. And that's a clear shot. Let me rewind that once again for you to see that. That's a clear, awesome. Well, hold on a second. There we go. If their faces weren't blurred out, you could have seen that was them. And obviously, if you're doing the map quest or whatever, you can kind of see exactly where that was due to that blue mailbox or paper stand. And this is the video we've seen a million times. Them arriving at the grub truck, and Kaylee placing the
October of 2019.
So Kaylee placing the order. She's trying to pronounce the carbonara. And obviously Maddie sees somebody she knows. She's walking around. As we've seen a million times, she goes and hugs this individual. I'm not going to slow this down to look for intricate clues on what went down there because anything can be perceived as nefarious regarding the way that you want to see it. And as we heard from the rideshare driver, he says Kaylee texted him, or he texted her, and then once he texted her, you can see here in a minute that she's going to be texting somebody, and then they get their food, and then they round the corner. So we've seen this grub truck video a million times, and you have to understand that exactly what's going on. She gets her order number, she pulls out her phone, no telling who she's texting, who she's talking to. But at this time, if it's, it was 1:40 when they walked across, when they were walking by that blue newspaper stand. So I would say it would be about 1:43 when they got to the grub truck. I wish there was a timestamp on this, but there's not. So he pulled up at 1:49. So it's a matter of minutes that they're here at this grub truck. And it looks longer because there's so much going on. And we've watched this a million times. I remember watching this the first time. And thinking, man, what can I see that looks suspicious? Is there something that I could see? Is there some individual that looks suspicious that gives you some kind of creepy vibe? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Where is it? You're scanning all over the place. You're looking at the people. The only person that really looks out of place would be this guy in the tank top. And I thought to myself, man, it looks pretty damn cold. Everybody else is wearing thick coats. you know, that girl in the white's wearing a beanie, and this dude's wearing a tank top. So I thought to myself, man, it must be pretty cold at that point. So everybody's, ordering food as it was suggested. I don't remember where I heard this, but Maddie was, trying to take everybody's order. So they made her food and they gave her her order and they took off. So right here, Kaylee's still texting somebody or talking to somebody. So could the rideshare driver have? I don't think he had arrived yet because it could be though. Because here in a second, the guy with the tank top gets his food, and then I believe they get their food after that. But 1:49 was the time that he arrived. And he said that Kaylee texted him. They were order number 75 out of 78, and they would be there in a couple seconds. So she's texting on the phone right now. No telling if she's actually texting him, if he's already there, if he's about to be there, because as you can see right here, there is a car light right here. Is that him parked already? If so, then he's arrived and it's 1:49. I wish there was a timestamp because that would tell us a lot more. But there is a vehicle out there, it looks like. But the rideshare driver or the Uber driver, Gower, said that there was a vehicle in front of the grub truck that he pulled up behind between that vehicle and the grub truck. So he would have been like right in the middle of two vehicles. So there are lights over here. There is light. I don't know if that's him pulled up, but I think right here in a minute, she's about to grab the food and then take off. So if that's him, then she's texting him right now. We'll be there in a second, as he stated in his interview. Because if he has drove up at this point, then that's what she's doing. That's who she's texting, potentially. I mean, there's still a lot of time, and it would be so nice if we had the timestamp, especially now that we have that interview, because he gave specific times that he was there, what time they pulled out, stuff like that. And if you didn't listen to the interview, he stated that when they got in the vehicle, Maddie started eating on the food with her fingers. So Kaylee's texting right here. She could be looking at the location of where he's at. Because if you get an Uber driver or some sort like that, you can see them where they're at. You can see the direction they're heading, how far from you they are, things like that. But I don't know if she had that luxury since she texted them directly. I know when I've taken an Uber, they usually give you what kind of make and model the car is, who the driver's name is, and things like that. So there she hit the pin. They're still talking, joking around. As you notice, everybody's kind of scattered. They're not as tightly around each other as they were. And there's the side camera, and you can see Jack right there. And there he arrives at, he said 1:49. So if the clock on the top would have been correct, then that would have been 1:49, and he was accurate. Because it is exactly 1:49 right there. That's 9:49, but obviously that camera had the wrong time. But he said 1:49. So he arrives. He said he texts Kaylee, I'm here. There she pulled out the phone. She said, hold on a second. She looks over there. She sees him, obviously. She's texting. We'll be there in a second. We're 75 or 78. Maddie's still looking around. Maddie was hungry, bro. I've been there, though. I've been there. I've been hungry like that, being that drunk. I've been hungry like that. And she's pointing at him. As we see here in a minute, she grabbed the food. She doesn't grab any silverware, and they're off and running. And this is the last little bit of these two that we have on video. Unless there is more video that's fixing to come out where we actually see them, driving by the 1112, or if Eric had any kind of camera in his video in his car, that there would have been video where he dropped them off. I mean, obviously Olivia got the one she got that I think 148 timeline from somewhere. So she saw a video of either the vehicle coming by the 1112 or she saw his camera. Either he sent her a camera image of them being dropped off or something. Because he said he pulled in a little bit, but there was a pile of clothes, there was a shoe there, and he didn't want to run over it. So they're still waiting on their food. So it's been more than a couple seconds, and he's already pulled up. We saw that video of him pulling up. He's in a blue Prius. Showalter gave an interview that stated it was a silver sedan. How he would have known that? Could he have been seeing the car in front of the car that was Eric Gower's? Because Eric said there was a vehicle in front of his vehicle when he pulled up. So there's a vehicle, there's Eric, and the grub truck. So could Showalter have gotten the car mixed up with the car that was in front of Eric's vehicle? It's possible. It's very possible. Probable even. Did he intentionally mislead the police? Probably not. Probably not. Let's hope not, And see, she's texting again, so she's getting a photo of either Maddie or somebody behind her. And right here, she's getting the food, and there they go. Okay, so let's stop it right there. Okay, there's Eric's vehicle. There's the grub truck. Obviously, that video, there's not a car in front of them, so I don't know where he got the silver sedan from. I really don't. But he got there at 49 after it is 52. So 49, 50, 51, 3 minutes after he got there, they got their food. And I know this is 9:52, but we know based on his interview, he got there at 1:49. So could this clock have been wrong? Could the whatever camera across the street, could it have been wrong? Of course it could have. Was it intentional? Probably not. How many times have you ever had a video camera that you recorded something and then you go back and watch it and it could be saying it was 2006 and you just recorded it in 2025? So it does happen, okay? Is that what happened? We don't know, but there's always a possibility why camera times are off unless they are body cameras, and it doesn't look like a body camera. So they get into the vehicle at 52 and 18 after. See, you saw Maddie's head duck in there. There's Showalter. He walks right by the vehicle. So why he said it was a silver sedan is beyond me. So many people have either intentionally lied or had shitty memories in this case. And that is the truth. I mean, I'm not going to dispute that one bit because we see that it's not a silver sedan. And there we see him walking down that street, and the car takes off. And 52 and 48. And what is this? Is this the video? Do we see the car coming? What? Do we actually see it? What are we looking at, Gray? Uh-oh. Do we have a little bit of juice here? And there's the 11:12. I guess, once again, there's no timestamp. And you say, why isn't there a timestamp? There was a timestamp whenever Koberger's vehicle was going around there. Well, I didn't make this video, so you can ask all you want. Does that mean it's fake? No. But obviously, this is showing something for a reason. And it seems to continue to play, so I don't know if we see the vehicle coming here in a minute or not. And if we do, that's going to tell a lot. Because nobody has ever seen this video where this car goes by. And it looks like there is going to be a car drive by. And if it is, how come people haven't talked about this? And we didn't see one. Okay, so no vehicle driving by there. I guess he's talking about something else. And that concludes that. So that was quite interesting. I wonder if that video of the ride, I'm going to call it Gower video, if actually that was something that was taken out of that. If it was really in that video, the police take it out of that? Or what happened to it? Gray is not much for fake stuff. I understand. Yeah, I know. I was just waiting to see if there was going to be the Uber driver coming up King Road and being seen on that 1112. Because if there would have been, man, that would have just told everything right there. And you have to ask yourself, where is that? Was that deleted? Was that ever seen by anybody other than police? And this is funny. This is stuff that the comment that I get. Last night, Jeff and I were talking about those 4 people coming up under the carport at Linda Lane. And this person says, one of those 4 people that walked into Linda Lane up the stairs looks like he had a knife in his hand. Rolo Moda did a video on this. Okay. It always cracks me up when they tell me about another creator's video, especially when I've already seen it. Just because you don't mention it doesn't mean that you haven't seen it. You know what I mean? I've seen that video. I've seen how Rolo kind of did the heat-seeking stuff on that guy's pocket where it looked like it could have been a knife in his pocket. But once again, I got to ask you this, okay? Just as a question, not because of that statement. You know, I'm beyond fighting other creators for their thoughts or who's right and who's wrong. Let's say, for the sake of argument, he did have a knife in his pocket. Let's say, for the sake of argument, there was a knife in his pocket. Does that mean that instantly, does that make him the potential perpetrator because he was carrying a knife? Kind of like the picture of the individuals. I think his name is Reed Upmore or something. I guess the dude with the shades and the bulletproof vest and the K-bar knife. I guess he has in a bulletproof vest or whatever. It is my impression that this area that there's a lot of hunting and hiking and that there's bears and all kinds of stuff going on. So if you're an outdoorsman, would it not make sense that you would have a K-bar knife? Do you believe that Brian had the only K-bar knife ever bought in the U.S., or that these individuals having these knives instantly made them a potential killer? Because I'm asking these questions because I hear the other perspective where they say, well, just because a person's creepy or just because a person's odd, does that make them a killer? Okay, I get that. I get that wholeheartedly. I really do. So I'm asking you, if you watch this in the future, the fact that somebody has a knife in Moscow, Idaho, does that mean that they were the potential killer because they had a K-bar? Or anybody in the fraternity who took a picture with a knife? Dylan, that one was fake. That photo of her holding a knife up, that's been debunked. Um, but what I'm saying is, there's been a lot of speculation in this case about only particular certain people being culpable of potentially committing this crime, and there's no way Brian could have done it. Well, we do have Amazon searches that showed that he bought a knife on Amazon, he bought a sharpener, he bought a sheath, the same as these other people. So if you're saying that these other people have the propensity of being a killer because you see in the picture that they have a K-bar knife, how do you not give Brian that same kind of suspicion? How does he instantly get deducted from that potential being a perpetrator? You get what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna really be if you're gonna be really fair, you have to be fair with everything. You just can't cherry pick, as they call it. You can. I mean, that's your right, but if you're really going to be fair and you're saying that you're non-biased, the fact that we found out that Brian Koberger did indeed buy a K-bar knife off Amazon, a sharpener and a sheath, and you've seen other people, the fraternity, and other people in these knife throwing, axe throwing leagues, and all this other stuff, where you would make it almost without a reasonable doubt that they were a potential suspect just because you see in a photo of an individual holding a K bar. In your mind, is that the only K bar in town? I mean, to be honest, I'm not being funny. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm asking a real question. It's like, you know, um, the fact that there was a knife in the house. My daughter almost always packs at least one knife. She has helped me numerous times when I needed one and didn't have one. Of course. And you live in the area. You live what, 20 minutes from Moscow? So, case in point. But what I'm saying is, we see a photo, there's a knife on a table. Instantly, we assume that this knife is tied to the stabbings. We don't ask those valuable questions, such as, could this steak knife, was any of these stab wounds that were found, could they have been committed by the steak knife? No, we've heard that it was committed by a large fixed edge knife, and there were gouges there were cuts and tears. So could this steak knife have made those wounds? If this steak knife could not possibly have made any of the wounds on any of the victims, it's a mute point whether that steak knife was there, whether it was on the top of the stairs, whether it was next to a victim. If there was no cuts or stabs in the victim that could have came from a steak knife, then it's a mute point. You can make it try to make sense for you all you want. But when you're really looking at evidence that points to a particular person or to a particular motive, these are the logical things that are being looked at. Because the police don't investigate like YouTubers investigate. They don't just ask questions. They actually get the lab results right there in front of them. They get the lab results paperwork explained to them, and so on and so on. So they have all these people at their disposal. While here on YouTube, we only have photographs, we only have videos, we only have witness statements, we only have interviews where there's so much that could be interjected by somebody's thoughts or questions that could either make this person guilty or not guilty. Like all the people that instantly were saying that Jack um, Jack D could have had something to do with it. Okay, let's go down that avenue because I've never talked about Jack D, never, and I've never talked about him because there's never been any mention of any kind of DNA or any kind of footprints or anything that could have connected him to the crime scene. Because chances are, if there was anything connecting him to that house, well, he used to date one of the victims. How could you tie him into the murder in that retrospect? Was there anything at his home that tied him into the murder? Was there any of the victim's blood? Was there any fibers that had any kind of DNA on it other than what was the normal DNA that would have been found with all of those victims that could have potentially went to his home? Now, if Ethan didn't hang with him and you found something of Ethan's over there in his house, you found some blood, you found some evidence, then you start thinking, okay, well, why is Ethan's stuff over here evidence-wise if y'all never hung out? Why do you have any of the mixture of any of these people in one retrospect? Then you could start looking at him as a suspect. But obviously they cleared him. And here's a comment. It says, well, I think they look at his personality in his eyes and his action towards women, his patterns. Of course. But I've known some creepy people in my lifetime. As we know, as far as these people that commit murders, we've been looking at these people for a long time on this channel. Most of them are not the ones that you would likely say, well, he's weird looking. He could be a killer. As what we've learned, most of these individuals, they blend into society. They're council members. They're members of political parties. They're professionals. They go to work during the day and kill all night. So it's not without reason that this person couldn't have met that criteria just because he was a criminology major working on his PhD. And once again, all that stuff that people embellish about the criminology stuff, I just got through taking a lot of criminal justice courses. I can tell you that by the books that I've read, the textbooks and everything, we talk about the investigative process. So if you're going to spend a lot of time on how a crime is investigated, it would make sense that you would try to do the opposite and commit a crime and not get caught. But at the same time, as I heard one professor state, it's an emotional connection to a murder. You know what I mean? It's an emotional connection to a murder. All the knowledge that you might have when it comes to you stabbing or shooting somebody, there's an emotional connection while you're doing this. So it's not something that, okay, all the textbook knowledge you have still did not keep him from making mistakes. Obviously, mistakes enough that scared him enough to plead guilty to these murders, whether he actually did them or not. That knife sheath having his DNA on it and then explained the way it's been explained, a lot of people may or may not believe that that's true. But it obviously scared him enough to say, well, you know what, they got this. I can't deny this. There's no way that I can make this go away. I need to plead. And they're offering not to kill me. Where do I sign? So I believe a lot of these channels, whenever they're talking about this crime and other crimes, they're using the emotional interpretation to discuss it. They're not they're not really discussing it based on scientific fact. You know what I mean? They're not really they're not really discussing this in a realm where you got this piece of evidence, but you got this piece of evidence. Well, you got this camera. Can you hear this supposed scream on this camera, but not on this camera, which is closer to the residence? How does that make sense? If the one furthest away hears a scream, but you look at the one closest to the residence and there's not a scream, wouldn't that tell you that that scream came from the one closest to the camera? Let's see, 1320 heard a scream, but 1330 didn't hear the same scream. But that's too logical for a lot of people. They don't want to hear that because it destroys what they're trying to build, whatever that might be. Might try to build a name for themselves. They might try to build a repertoire that they're really investigators after the fact or that they know more than other people. And this is YouTube. You can be anything you want to be. You can be anybody you want to be. You can say anything you want. And most of the time, unless you get caught, and even if you get caught, you just wait a little bit, fade into the background, and then come back like nothing ever happened because people forget about it. You know, we've had people lie about a lot of things. You know, we had one person telling people that one of their relatives died. And they were asking for a GoFundMe to bury this person. And people were donating, right? And then he comes out and says he didn't really die. He got taken by CPS. And now he's all over panels. And it's, you know, people have either forgot about it or they act like it's not that big of a deal when a creator lies. They forgive them and they say, okay, well, you know, you made a mistake. Let's move on. But when it comes to these cases that we cover, any inconsistency or any misspelling of words or whatever, these people don't give the same, they don't give the same respect to these victims, to their families, to the cops, to the investigators, to the forensic people. They don't give that kind of leniency. They hold them to the fire and they never let up. They never let up. But yet we have YouTubers scamming people. We have YouTubers lying about certain things. We have YouTubers committing fraud. We have YouTubers doing all kinds of stuff, but they get the benefit of the doubt while the cases that we cover, you choose a side and you stay on that side no matter what. People make mistakes. I get that. People aren't perfect. I make mistakes daily. But at the same time, there are mistakes that I make that aren't gonna, they're not gonna, it's not gonna take my career away. It's not gonna take my livelihood away. It's not gonna take my trust with my family away. It's not gonna take the trust with my friends away. And I try to do things and be about it where it doesn't take the trust of my subs or my moderators. And one video that I just did a while back, as you noticed, there's hardly any moderators in my streams anymore because I got rid of all of them. Because people side up because they feel that they're a family or they feel that they're tight or that this is a group of friends. And you can lose your whole channel to people that are so close together and one thing happened and you're painted in a light that you can't overcome, half your channel goes somewhere else. And that's what happened. And you know what? If you're watching this and you're thinking about getting a channel, I would think twice about getting a channel because it's not as luxurious as people make it sound. Because either you're in it for the real reason or you're in it to be a social true crime channel. Because there's a difference between real true crime and there's these social channels, you know. I chose a long time ago not to be a social channel because I don't want to be all about all that. Talking about all kinds of BS in the chat. Well, there's plenty of chat rooms to go and just talk about BS. You know? I'm talking about stuff that people are asking questions about and they still don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? It's funny to me. But I'm not going to go any longer with that. It is what it is. And I'll still be here after the live button shuts off until the day I'm no longer here. If you keep showing up and you're not in the chat, thank you so much for being here. If you feel that you can't come into the chat because the family or friends that you have that are no longer here, that you're going to be judged um, by their stance on whatever the channel stands for, you're more than welcome to come in here. Those people don't own the channel. They don't run it. They don't speak for me. That's why I told them a long time ago that, you know what? You think what you want. You don't have a say in the direction that my channel is going to go. And that's, so you feel comfortable to come into the chat. We don't have clicks here. If you have friends in the chat, come talk to them. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, it's okay. Come in and talk. It's fine. This isn't a dictatorship, you know? This isn't a dictatorship. And I do appreciate everybody that continues to come because we do ask those questions. Whether we get the right answer, that's to be seen. All I know is the end result is Brian Koberger is in prison right now. These 4 people are dead. 2 people have survivor's guilt, I'm sure. And everything in between may or may not ever clear up for me or anybody else. Because you continue to hear different stories. You see different answers. Why did he say silver sedan? When you know damn well it wasn't a silver sedan. He walked right by it. He knew that was blue or black or what kind of color it was. But that's just young people. They're going to lie about stuff because they're so used to lying about everything. They don't want anybody in their business. And if you've ever had a juvenile age child, you do understand that. They're going to lie first or give you the lie by omission, give you the very vaguest answer you could ever have. And then when you press them a little bit more, then they're going to tell you the truth. So that's how I look at a lot of these documents is, you know what, first answer that came out of their mouth. They're so used to lying to each other, to their friends, living a life that's really not real. And then when you're asking them about a real life, they're not able to tell you most of the time because they don't know how to communicate effectively. I see it every day. So I hope that that makes a little more sense on what I've showed you tonight. The real Eric Gower did obviously do the interview. The other Eric Gower that was trying to take credit, it sounds like he was just trying to get his 15 minutes of fame. Unless that Eric Gower did another interview with Anjanette and the other person, and he embellished what he didn't tell the police. Then he lied. Then he was a liar too. Can we ever explain why people lie? No, we can't. Can we ever explain why people embellish things? No, we can't. But, you know, it adds to a lot of secrecy. And like I've always told my clients, you're sick at the secrets you keep. So the more secrets you keep, that's how sick you are. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. I hope that you stay safe out there. And like I always say, watch your six. And here are the charities. This one is for breast cancer. This one is for the Feed More Pantry. And this one is for the American Heart Association. So make sure that if you feel giving during this holiday season, you hit one of those QR codes and you donate because it goes directly to their website. It doesn't come to my channel. So I have nothing to do with that financial gain or any of that. So, or just, you know, do something anonymous in your community. Or if you have a QR code that you make, drop it in my email at 12gagephillips41@gmail.com. Drop it in my email. Make sure you have the right QR code because it's frustrating when you get a QR code and you have to figure it out and make it yourself. But try to give me a QR code or some kind of charity, and we'll demonstrate this during the holidays. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Once again, my name is 12 Gauge. Stay safe and always watch your six. Maestro, cue that music. Catch you soon.